Okay, ready? Okay. Hi, I'm Joshua Higgs.
I'm Elena Kristeva.
It's just a shout out. Okay, you're good.
Hi, I'm Joshua Higgs,
I'm Elena Kristeva.
and we are both the directors of Me in a Nutshell.
Me in a Nutshell is about a little green goober whose name is Me. He is very toddler-like, and we see him experience the world through the first time like a child, until eventually he gets stuck in a nutshell, and he finds that it's very difficult to live his life once he gets stuck. So he does everything in his power to get out.
When it came to the art style for Me in a Nutshell, we knew that both Elena and I wanted to approach it pretty differently from what we're used to. Both of our art tends to be sort of cartoony, and so we wanted to push ourselves to do something a little bit more abstract and painterly. That was very hard to translate, both visual development wise and 3D wise, but we were able to work together as a team to sort of push that sort of art style that we were looking for, and I think it turned out really well.
We really wanted to push our use of color. We wanted color to translate the emotional moments that are going on through the film. Halfway through the film, we wanted to have a night scene to showcase like his hardships, so the color shifts to a sort of blue key, and we really wanted to have the audience experience emotion through color. The message of this film is essentially about growing up. We wanted the audience to go back to what it felt like to be a child and feel like their childhood was being taken away. Me essentially goes through adulthood, so we wanted to showcase the hardships that adulthood comes with, but ultimately the purpose that it brings in the end.
I'm Triaso Farno,
And I'm Andrew Lesh.
and we're the animation leads on Me in a Nutshell. So when approaching a character like me, he doesn't quite fit into the environment that he's placed in. He's very cartoony, and the world he's in is more grounded and realistic. So when approaching that, we wanted to kind of show the dichotomy between the environment he's in and me as a character.
To contrast Me's cartoony character, we went with a very VFX heavy, realistic style for the creatures that surround him to just really give the contrast that Me is in a world that he doesn't fit into. Whenever we approached the blocking stage, we really wanted to create a 2D-like feel to the character, especially Me. That is something that you would see in films like Hotel Transylvania, where the poses are very sharp and feel almost like they don't fit into a 3D world. When approaching the animation for Me as a character, I really like the squishy marshmallow feel that we gave the character. It feels like he was not created for the world around him. I think there's a lot of appeal in the character. He's not the brightest, and it's very fun that we get to have him traverse the world in such a clumsy way. It was also a challenge to animate Me as a character because he is such a dull character. We have his eyes constantly spread out, where it's hard to show the focus of the character. But whenever we have moments that matter and beats that we need to hit, it was very fun to bring those eyes in to show that Me was gaining some sort of consciousness. To ensure the style was being matched as accurately as possible, we did very in-depth drawovers for this process of animation. We would have the animators match the 2D-like styles.
Yeah, it's just been really fun to see all these characters evolve and transform as we continue to research and play with their characters and what fits in each given scene.
I'm Nico Hoyos, and I'm the rigging lead on Me in a Nutshell. So on the film, really the thing that I enjoyed the most and that drew me the most was like sort of just the variety and different styles of rigs that we were going to do. Mainly the fact that like even the main character, despite the fact that we were being in 3D, leaned a lot more sort of to 2D style. So one thing I really liked was that a lot of the poses couldn't just be achieved by keeping the body parts all in one place, and it was closer to something styled kind of like Kirby. And so when I was shown a lot of like turnarounds, normally sort of that'd be something where I'd critique, where it'd be like, hey, from this angle or this angle when he's doing certain poses, like that wouldn't be achievable because the arms would have to shift further forward on the body or the legs would have to move. But sort of that's something I actually wanted to challenge myself a lot. So when I was approached with the idea for the film, I was immediately like, yes, like not only is this something I want to do, but I actually already have an idea of how I want to approach these rigs. I already was sort of looking at the character design and trying to figure out on other rigs that I was doing how I could start to implement these different methods and ways of rigging, such as, for example, using shrink wrap for the limbs, detaching the joints, and sort of setting it up so that you could really move the limbs anywhere, transform them however you wanted to. So then for different scenes, the animators could really really mess with the rig and shape it closer to how you would on a 2D film to change the proportions for the character to fit different acting needs. Another thing that really helped was sort of like messing with not just like how I was rigging, but what tools I was using. So it was really fun and interesting, sort of instead of basically figuring out how I'm gonna rig and then approaching every single one of the characters from that same angle, it was a lot of fun sort of going to the animators being like, what does this need to do? How does this need to move? How do I do that? And then from there, figuring out what I was gonna do. So for me, that was a lot of fun, and it's really made like the rigging experience on this project really different from any other I've been on.
Hello, my name is Josh Gates, and I am the modeling lead and layout artist for Me in a Nutshell. My main job is to look over everyone's assets and make sure they are following our art style and direction for the film. But one of the major things is keeping our hand-carved wood look to a lot of our assets, as well as making sure certain assets are modeled in a way that makes sense for where they go in the film. So for a background asset, it wouldn't make sense for them to be super detailed, but for, say, a hero asset that will be right in front of the camera, that's going to need a lot more detail and a lot more fine-tuning than something far back away from the camera. Another one of my roles on the team is foliage. So I played a big part in making the foliage system for our trees and our bushes. Using Blender's node system, I put together a system that will take base geometry like circles and other blobs and replace that geometry with a bunch of little cards that will represent the leaves. So using that, it would scatter the leaves all over the geometry, and that would be our leaves. And as well as that, they have a system to replicate wind and as well as falling leaves. As well as modeling and art procedural systems, I also am the layout artist. So once assets are done, I place them all in the scene and make sure they are ready for the imported animation and then the lighting.
Hi everyone, I'm Aditya Rajan and I'm the texture lead for Me in a Nutshell. A lot of my work on the film involved me help creating shaders and layouts for the film, as well as texturing various assets, and also ensuring that a lot of the work the team produces lines up with the concept art and the overall visual vision for the film. Among other things, I also ensured all materials and final assets created by the entire technical team were cohesive and matched the overall style of the film. In addition, I also helped design various layouts and devise a ground and grass collision system to ensure various models such as me and the blueberries, among other animals, would collide and fall in ways that would prevent clipping through the models. In addition, I also developed water systems that creates ripples using Blender's special dynamic paint system, which reacts to different objects when placed among water, as well as other objects such as the ground.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Moore. I am the post-production lead on Me in a Nutshell. My job is to handle lighting and compositing on our film. We are using Blender as our render engine, and coming into this film, I had some experience with the program. I kind of just jumped into figuring out lighting and seeing how closely I could match our concept art. The style we are going for is pretty unrealistic. We want very bright, saturated colors, as well as sharp brim lights on our characters. There is also a contrast between me and his environment, because me is trying to figure out his place in the forest. We have these beautiful color scripts done by our directors to base the lighting off of. What I especially love is how the time of day changes throughout the story, from a warm morning to the afternoon to a stormy night and then back to sunrise. It's definitely a challenge to translate that and keep shots consistent, but it makes for a very satisfying experience. For compositing, we are using Nuke. There's not a ton that we want to do outside of color correction and depth of field. For the proof of concept especially, I went back to add some more volumetric lights and God rays. And then for some shots, we'll have set extensions through matte paintings. There are also some shots with 2D effects. I'm really looking forward to wrapping up this film. We have such a talented team of animators and artists, so working at the end of the pipeline, my job is to make sure each of these individual pieces are highlighted and made cohesive.
Hello, my name is Jordan Tiber, and I'm the producer on Me in a Nutshell. My main job is to facilitate the needs of my team members as well as the overall production of the film. Some of the tools we use on this film are things like ShotGrid, which is a software that helps with scheduling and assignments and pretty much anything to do with production. Things like Google Sheets and Excel for organization and master sheets, as well as communication hubs and file organization. The timeline of the film is based around our academic quarters, which are 10 weeks each. We have 10 weeks for pre-production, which we've already completed, 10 weeks for production, which we're in right now, and we're going to have the final 10 weeks for post, but there is a little overlap between each one. Some of the main programs we use for this film is Maya and Blender for our 3D modeling and animating, ZBrush for modeling as well, Substance Painter for texturing, Nuke for rendering and editing, and Premiere for video editing. What I love about being producer on this capstone is that my team is just amazing and kind. Being a producer is a lot about learning on the job, and anytime I'm confused or have a question, all of my team members who specialize in their specialties are always willing to help me learn, grow, and figure something out. Any donations given to the film will be used only for the film. One of the main aspects would be festival submissions. This is how we get our film out there and noticed in the industry. It would also be for any software or appliances we've used that we may have purchased. We hope to have your support as we work on this film. We hope you'll keep your eyes peeled for our film festival run,